working on my ideas or sharing. This is the first time I've done something like this, so it's kind of fun.
Cool. I mean, we're all learning as we go, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Coach Shannon, thank you so much for coming on. You're the coach at Principia College. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
You are. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So thanks for talking to us a little bit about just your program today and mindset. And so first off, I just would love to hear a little bit about the college and just how it's different from other schools.
Well, Principia is a small college out in the corn country of Illinois. We're across the Mississippi from St. Louis, Missouri. So that's our big town, about 45 minutes. But we're sitting on the bluffs of the Mississippi River, and so it's spectacularly beautiful.
Oh, awesome.
We are one of the only colleges actually in the world, and it's a Christian Science-based college. So currently everybody, faculty and staff, are Christian Scientists, and students are. It's possibly opening up to more people with diverse backgrounds who are interested in spirituality, because that's really the root of our basis, is a spiritual thought and representation of all we're doing. So we're always striving to do our best. Actually, one of our mottos for the campus is, well, our mission is to serve the cause of Christian Science through an educational institution, a higher educational. But we don't teach Christian Science. It's just kind of our practice within ourselves that is Christian Science. But it is a spiritual approach to life. That's our mission. We have, I love these 4 words because I look at other Christian colleges, because we are Christian colleges, and I love these 4 words. We strive to demonstrate God in all that we do. We try to conquer all that is unlike good. We love God and our neighbor as ourselves, and we give unselfishly. So that's kind of a motive, a way of looking at it. So it's Bible-based. It's based on the 2 great commandments: love God, love your neighbor of yourself. But we go back to the Old and New Testament, and it's part of our daily life. It's a practice. So
absolutely
align it all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned before, Winning Mindset is we do have a Christian backing to our program as well. And it's kind of an optional thing that our clients can do, or they don't have to do, but we incorporate that sort of as we see fit, or as the client sees fit. And I think it can be extremely impactful just in terms of becoming, a better package of yourself, of what God intended you to be, and how to use the gifts that He's given you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we get into that, I'd love to just ask you, you're the tennis coach. Is that men's and women's, or just women's?
I'm just the women's tennis coach. So we have a men's team as well. So we're in Division III NCAA in the SLIAC conference.
Okay.
So that's where we're located, the central division of the NCAA.
Okay, awesome. So I want to ask you, just what are some of your coaching philosophies on your team?
So I was thinking about that. I love the idea of courage, because you can't do anything without courage. So to get out on the tennis court, you have to be creative. To compete, you have to have courage. You have to be bold. So that courage is that boldness within the match to hit the right shot, to just trust. So I like courage. We work on that, and we take it to all aspects, but it's one of the most important, vital things. I like awareness. So we work on awareness. To pay attention to your thought process, actually the mental process, to coming back, to be present, to be in the moment. I mean, as we're competing in matches, so preparing you for that. But it goes beyond that. And then trust. So trusting your what you've learned, your process, your faith, trusting your skills in the moment to actually have courage and operate. So in that sense, it's act, right? To act, awareness, courage, trust. So I kind of trying to tie that in together. And I love Amy Cuddy. You probably know her, the TED Talk on positioning, on body language. So first you have to act like you want to be. So it kind of falls into that as well. So we're going to act how we want to live and be. And then we may not believe it. You know, we may fake it. She says you're going to fake it till you make it, and you believe it, and then you become it. So we may be afraid to go compete. We may not feel like we're up to it, but we're going to act in it, you know, take that position that we know and then trust the process.
Yeah, I love that. And then you can't do that unless you're aware of yourself and how you are already acting, and whether that's being portrayed in a confident way or not.
Right.
And just what you said about courage makes me think of, we do a lesson on we do a whole section on aggressiveness and how to be an aggressive athlete, because I think it's really hard to play good tennis and not be aggressive. And I know that there are a lot of tennis players that want to be aggressive, but they can't because they don't trust, or they don't have the courage to just go for their shots, or they kind of go off the handle and go the other way. They go for way too much, and they sort of play outside of themselves and what they know how to do, right? So that comes back to awareness. And so I really love that ACT acronym, because it just ties everything together. Like, you can't have one without the other. And if you only have, you know, awareness, but you don't have courage, you're missing something. And if you have, you know, you have courage, but you don't have, you know, the awareness of being aggressive and all of that, then you can't do that either. And then the trust piece just ties into both of those.
Yes.
So that's really good stuff. I've never heard it put so concise. Cool. So I really like that.
So I'm working on it all the time to make it more coherent, and I try to practice it, which is, the goal for the team and the athletes that I coach. When I think about it, I have 2 daughters, so I try to do it for them, but I also think of my student athlete as my girls, and how do I want them to go out in life? Can they use these ideas and skills, because it translates to all of life. Right now it's studies and relationships, but it moves out to all of life and work and everything. So
yeah, to me, that's the mark of a really good coach, is someone who doesn't just care about their athletes on the court, but also cares about them off the court, and is showing you, hey, you know, this applies to your life. This applies to your schooling. You know, you can't be one way outside of, you can't be a mess off the court and then expect to be this total package athlete on the court. So coaches who take a vested interest in the lives of their students off the court, which I think is very clear, especially at a faith-based school, because it's so comprehensive in terms of how to be everything God meant for you to be. And it takes that caring approach. So that's so great. So, you know, while all that is wonderful philosophy, I know as well as anybody that you can have all the great philosophy in the world on how to, and still have athletes that have struggles and just go through, you know, mental struggles on the court. And I think, you know, we'd all be lying to ourselves if we didn't say every one of us went through that. So what are some of the mental struggles that you see on your teams over the years, like maybe some patterns that you've seen?
Well, one is I have a fairly, some players are not as developed and haven't had as much competition in sports. So, and even for people who are at high levels, there's often that fear to get on the court and to play and perform. So handling the thought of fear is to, stay in the process and how they handled it. So remind them what they know to do and how to do it. One great example that I shared with them that's helpful to me, it was a huge aha moment, was, you remember Scavone, who made it to the French Open final? It was probably 10 years ago, and she was a Spanish player.
Vaguely, yeah.
And she was just a journeyman player and never made it that far, and she made it to the finals. And she tells the story that before the match, she was just a crying heap on the floor with her coach. And I've even heard Wawrinka say something like this. She was just so afraid, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I don't know what to do. And he just built her up, and they went with their game plan, and they remembered what they've done and where they went. And she let like all that fear out. I mean, just noticed it, didn't try to change it, but just was present with it. He talked about their process, and then she went out, and it was truly the most inspirational, incredible match she'd ever played in her life. She was fearless and on top of it. So I love that story, because we all have fear and it's okay, but how can we go out and then perform and execute? So I think that's one thing. And then we, Bible-based, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, perfect love casteth out fear. So that love encompasses you, the sport, the activity, what you're doing, and your opponent, and you're both there to strive to do your best. So when you're not worried, and that's an opponent, but you're both striving to bring out the best in each other, just kind of changes that dynamic of what you're doing. So that's kind of some things that we've approached and come to. I had one student this year who just couldn't get out of being self-conscious about it all, right, for the whole match. But then at the end of it, it's like, well, what could you have done differently? How could you, and just remembering the process. So yeah, I want to just do this. And she's had experiences where she had something she committed to and could do it. So, I mean, those are all the learning experiences for life. You have a little bit of a setback. How are you going to handle it? Can you, in the moment, change your thinking? And so then we've had others that have remembered their training and their prayers and brought them in to calm them down, to bring them in the process. So
yeah, that's so great. And something that you hit on in the story that you told about fear and that acknowledgement of the fear, I think something that's really important that clearly you provide your athletes is just that openness of being a coach that you can go to and say, hey, like I am feeling nervous, I am feeling afraid, and I know that being an athlete, I've been there, and if I can say those things and I have a support system and I have someone there that's like, that's okay, worst case scenario, you go out and you're not any good, right? And I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to, we're still going to go out to dinner. We're still going to have a good time. And, we're going to come back and practice tomorrow, whether you do well or you don't. And I think there's a freedom in that as an athlete to have someone. It doesn't even, I mean, if it's your coach, that's the best. Mm-hmm. But, a parent or a teammate where you can just have that freedom. Hey, I'm scared. And I'm feeling like I might let people down or whatever. And then having someone tell you that that's okay. And even if you do, it's okay. I think there's just tremendous freedom in that. And I think it just brings me back to like, and you probably know the verse better than I do, but where God just says that it's not good for man to be alone. Like he wants us to be in community with others because he knows the support that provides. All of us. And so that just reminded me of all that. And just, I've been through that as an athlete myself.
Yeah, we all have. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not even in athletics, it's getting on a phone call, or a Zoom, yeah. Right? But it takes practice, and then you have opportunity. But yeah. I was just this week, one of my favorite Bible quotes, and it comes up because we read the Bible like weekly and daily, is I know the thoughts that I think of you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. And so God's always there for you. So that's some quotes that we use and come back to, that God is always there for you. And his expected end for you is good and harmony and loving and peace and patience and all those ideas and qualities. And
Yeah.
and then another thing that I try to teach the athletes, and I would call them my girls, but anyway,
Oh, me too.
my athletes, kind of at times is like, yeah, but is the idea that it's always a choice. Each moment's a choice, what you're going to choose to be with, and it's a choice. And in competition, it's a choice. And when you make that, and they say all sports, you have to have guts, but sometimes it comes from deep within you, that choice of, I'm not going to miss. I'm going to stay in this point. I'm not giving up. And when you make that choice right in there, then it stays with you forever. I mean, you remember that moment. So I think that's a great thing about sports in college, is those moments when you made those choices and it's made a difference, and you just hung in there when you thought you couldn't, and you chose to trust your process, trust what's going on.
Yeah.
Sitting there and just, I'm not going to believe that thought. I'm going to move forward. And can I give you an example, a quick example?
Yeah,
So I had the opportunity, very difficult at times, to coach my daughter, and that was very tough. And she was kind of a novice player and played, I needed her, and she played because I needed her, but she did like the sport. So senior year, she played a girl that she had lost to the year before, maybe twice. And it was a struggle, and she'd been ahead, and the girl came back. So she's playing in the pivotal match, last point, and arch rival team, right? Big. And she's up. She won the first set, which she hadn't done before. She's up maybe 5-1 in the second. And then she just gets afraid, and the other girl starts playing better, and they're both playing really well, brilliantly. It's great points. It's long, but she's just can't get there. And then it's 5-2, and then it's 5-3, and then it's 5-4, and then she loses her serve at love, and it's like 5-5, and then the girl goes ahead 6-5, and she comes over, and she's a crying heap mess. You know what I mean?
I do.
And it's like, honey, right here, you have that choice right here to go out with dominion and trust that you're taken care of, that you have all that you need. You can go trust that. So it was 6-5. She says she went out and she just said, I'm not going to lose this game. And then she played fearlessly. Long game, hard game. She won it. Tiebreaker, very close, 4-4, 5. And she just said, I'm not missing, final point, I'm not missing. But that experience, and she did come back and she did win, but it was a choice at 6-5 not to cry and quit and give up, but to just dig deep. But that experience has just served her well throughout the rest of her education, in her master's program, in her work now. It's something that we can go back to and talk. Remember the choice you made? It could look like this. It felt like that. Remember how it felt? Because those feelings come back in all parts of life, not just the competition. So I think sports, whatever sport, provides us those opportunities of triumph, of working towards that goal. And there's never failure. There's always learning. Right? There's always learning.
Yeah. But I do think that it takes a coach often to point that out, because sometimes we think that our athletes are learning these lessons automatically, and they're going through and fighting for something that's on the court, and it's on the court, and they're leaving it on the court, and they're not seeing sometimes how it can translate to life and working hard at a job or at a dream or a new business or a family or a marriage, and realizing like, hey, right now, you're you're trying to start a new business and it's third set down 5-6, you know, like, and you're about to go and you're fighting to get into a tie break just because, you know, you got a global pandemic that's trying to pull your business down, right? So I think sometimes we think as coaches that the athletes are always drawing those connections, but I think it is our job to draw them for them, just in case they're not getting it or missing the bigger picture.
Right.
Because I know that when I was an athlete, I was pretty singularly focused. Outside of my academics, I was pretty singularly focused on the athletics, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about the big life lessons that I was learning at the time. And so, you know, I think that's the mark of a good coach is someone that is pointing those out for their athletes and showing them. So that's cool that you got to do that with your own daughter.
And then we use that. We use that all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, the college coaches you hear, most of them know that sometimes we get caught up in wanting to win and get that thing, and we forget there's pressure to win and be successful. But in reality, I think they're always, and we forget to make those connections with our students. But I think good coaches out there are always knowing that there is a bigger picture beyond this. But it really is the laboratory for life, that those competitive moments.
Yeah. And I think that you even maybe have an even easier window to that, just because, you know, faith is something that you incorporate on your team. And most likely, you know, when you're giving advice or explaining something, you're saying, this is what God is saying. Like, typically you're not just coming up with it on your own. Like, you're like, this is what the Bible says about this. And, you know, how can you use your prayers right now to trust? How do you think you might use prayers in the future to trust, you know, adversity type situations? So the door kind of opens for you, I think, maybe even more than another college, just because of that. So I'm just interested to find out just what the structure, I guess, is on your team in terms of how you do incorporate faith. Is it a devotional at the beginning of practice? Is it any, you know, does the team have certain times together where they're focused on prayer, or what does that look like for you guys?
Almost, I see all the sports on campus, and there are 17 or 18 NCAA sports. We usually start our practices with like a metaphysical meeting, and the person in charge of the metaphysical meeting are the students. So they'll bring in a Bible quote or an inspirational thought or something they read. We have a daily lift app that has Bible quotes and quotes from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Rebecca, because that's a companion book that we study. So they'll bring it in, and then they'll share a little bit about why they liked it for the day, and then how they can use it all in their practice. Then maybe sometimes during practice, they'll come back and remind it. Sometimes you forget like all of that, you know, when you get caught up. So it's coming back to that, but they're really in charge of that. So that's how practices start. If there's an injury or a need, our students come together and pray for each other, with each other, with ideas. And so they'll share ideas about how they've handled things. That's how we'll start a competition, or, you know, the warm up before the competition. Again, the captains will bring in a metaphysical idea to work with. They might have a Bible quote that they're going to use throughout the match or something, or a hymn that supports them and keeps them calm between the points to just soothe their thought, and they can come back to the process of playing and what they want to do, you know. So they're really kind of in charge of it. We share stories and healings. So, I mean, it's a healing religion. So we're practicing it like all the time. It's not just when they come
Mhm.
here. So that's how our practices and our matches are structured and things like that. Some teams also meet with I know the soccer teams meet with the other Christian colleges out on the thing and say a prayer maybe after a match and all come together. So it all just kind of depends. There's a few Christian colleges also within our division. So,
Yeah.
everyone is putting God first and grateful. And ours is, we're there to express and witness God's goodness in our activity.
Mhm. What I love about that is that it sounds like it's really coming from the student athletes primarily, not that you're there to support and to be a leader in that, but it sounds like it's truly coming from them too. Whoop, uh,
Is it going to go
no,
off?
yeah, I think we're okay right now.
Cool.
But yeah, so I just love that it's coming from them. And a parallel that I draw to that is just in mindset training, the way that we train is we really ask a lot of questions to the student athletes and try to get the mindset training and the thought processes to come from them, because we know that us just telling them what to do, may help a little bit, but it's not going to help much unless they put it into their own words and come up with their own specific strategies. I can give them an idea about something that has worked for me or for other athletes, but they're going to have to personalize and individualize that. And so it's really got to come from them. And that's when things really stick, is when it comes from yourself.
Right.
So very cool. Well, one other question I have for you is, you told me that you are still competing yourself, which is really cool. And you're kind of at the top of that level. And so I'm just wondering, what are your secrets? Just a couple, maybe give us like one or two that you have found that worked for you over the years. What keeps you going? What keeps you coming back? And what's worked in terms of actually success on the court?
All right, good question. Let's see. So I competed in college. I was at UCLA. I was a walk-on and then a scholarship athlete, and then played some of the satellite tour things, and then raised a family and did other things and taught tennis. And I did ballroom dancing for 10 years in the 2000s, and that was super fun. But then when I got a couple years ago, I started playing tennis again. I thought, well, that'd be so cool to have a senior age division international competition. So I thought I wanted to do that. The question to me always is, why are you doing this? What's the purpose? And so I have to come up with that. I love the game of tennis. It teaches you so much about yourself. It's an opportunity to express, I think it's the talents he gives, we must improve, is kind of what kept coming to me. So I kind of have a talent for this. I thought, well, maybe it'll be fun to improve it and use it and practice it. So that's why I'm doing it. And then I'm a dedicated athlete. It takes a lot to be at the top and win at that level. So it's all encompassing. There's practice, there's mental strength, I rely spiritually on my prayers and my practice. There's, being in shape, because to play 5 days in a row at this age, I'm sorry, it's pretty hard. So a lot of the women by the end of the week have a lot of strapping on, like tape and things. And they actually ask me, well, like, how do you do it? I don't have as much tape, but I don't have tape. And I just said, well, I pray. I mean, I'm praying my way through it, all the way from the physical aches and pains that would suggest and try to come through to the mental. So I'm always working on that mental game as well, the doubts that come to me. How do we get back into that zone where you're just expressing. So I think we're all searching for that, those games when you can be in the zone and just express. So I've
Yeah.
had a few of those recent. I mean, I've had that in the last year. I go, oh, that's what that was. That was awesome. How do you get
Yeah.
there?
And you
So,
can't get there without being fully present and
yeah.
trusting.
So I'm working on awareness. I'm working on courage. One time I called someone for help and support, and she said, just be bold. So being bold is taking the overhead, hitting the shot that's set up for you, coming in on the short ball. You know, you have to be bold. You can't be tentative. You have to be courageous. So all those things that I'm focused on with my students is what I'm practicing. So we just talk about it. You have to trust what you've done and where you are, and then get out of the other person. You know what I mean? So you have to focus. So I'm still working on it.
Yeah, I love that you're working on exactly what you're teaching your own students. That's, you know, that's what I try to do as well. And something that you brought up, you know, you can't be set up for the point and do all that work. And you might beat some players if you don't ever be aggressive, right? If you're just that backboard and you just get the ball back, and you can win a lot of matches that way.
Right.
But once you kind of get to a certain level, you know, you can't let the opportunities pass you by and just give the ball back, right? You have to be aggressive. You have to trust. You have to go for it. You know, you must take those opportunities, or else they're going to take them for you, and then you're going to be on defense and you're going to wonder why you lost the point. So it is that aggressive piece, I think, of tennis is kind of that. That's the next level stuff, you know, like you can win a lot of matches just getting it back and doing that, but you're never going to be past like a 4-0 probably. You're probably never going to get past that level there if you don't learn how to trust and go for it and be aggressive. But yeah, that's awesome stuff. So thank you so much for coming on. Where can if somebody was just looking at Principia College Tennis, wanted to find you, where can they find you?
They'd find me, if you go to Principia College, you have to go to the athletics section. So athletics, women's tennis, women's sports, there's inquiries. You can see my bio, but there's forms. So if you're interested in the college, fill out one of those, or just my email, which is on there, shannon.carney@principia.edu. Send me an email and I'll get back to you about what we do. But, you know, I'm interested in hearing from you and getting a few more players on my team. So I would love to coach you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us, and have a great day.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Winning Mindset.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.